who you have seen on this show before, and I am very excited to see this particular film covered, going back to the old school. So if you will, let's give it up for our first professor, Dilla. Sure.
All right, so after staying pretty firmly rooted in my favorite childhood films of the 80s and 90s for the last couple of years and doing these talks, like Mike said, I'm going to take us super far back, way back to 1948, into Alfred Hitchcock's queerest film and my personal favorite, Rope. Okay, so there's like a handful, that's great. Usually people have never seen the movies that I like, so that's nice. So really quick before we get started, because I don't want to bore too many people, how many people here know about the Hays Code? Okay, handful, so you might be bored. The rest of you, here's something new. So the Hays Code, which is the shorthand for the Motion Picture Code, which is now like the motion picture rating stuff that we have now, it was Hollywood's first attempt to preemptively self-censor before the government stepped in. So it came on the tail of several scandals, most famously the Fanny Arbuckle rape homicide scandal, and lots of other Hollywood scandals. It outlawed all the best kinds of immoral behavior. And since they couldn't even say the word homosexuality out loud, all the queer stuff got coded under sexual perversion, which is how I like to think of myself. So its early form had no teeth. It was mainly just for show, just to try to make sure that the feds never stepped in. It was largely ignored by the studios. Queers were raging, and then the Catholics stepped in. And like the Catholics do, they ruined everything, and they forced a stronger version of the code and required Hollywood to go with it with their own version. And so by the time that Rope hit the scene in 1948, we're kind of mid in the strongest part of the Hays Code. Homeless had largely been removed from all storylines, and they were forbidden from being portrayed in basically any light. So this is, in my opinion, where we really see some of Hitchcock's true cinematic magic, and unfortunately not something that he gets super known for, which is his ability to like openly hide queers and queer storylines in lots of his films. Rope isn't the only one. He did it in Psycho, he did it in Rebecca, North by Northwest, Strangers on a Train, and what we're going to talk about tonight, Rope. So Rope is more famously known for popularizing the long take. He did a lot of experimentation with this film. It was also his first Technicolor film, so we're going to see a lot of bright, shining colors. It can no longer be called dusty because it's not black and white. And he wanted to create this illusion of continuous, uninterrupted shot. So similar to like a play or theater experience. And so this meant 9 to 10 minute long shots instead of the usual 2 to 3 minute long shots. Elaborately constructed moving sets, choreographed movements from the actors, all of it. And because of all of that, ultimately Hitchcock famously called Rope a failed experiment. And it joined a small catalog of films that he owned that never saw public viewing after its initial release until he died in the 80s. And so Rope, North by Northwest I think was on this list, Rebecca was on this list. A bunch of movies didn't get seen or put out for a lot of different reasons. But this one mainly just because he just didn't like the way that it unfolded. But with all this space to move around, 10 roomy minutes for a scene to unfold, there was a lot of space for the actors, especially the leads, Farley Granger and John Dahl, to like just super really clear it up. So Rope is based on a play that was based on the true story of Leopold and Loeb. Does anybody know Leopold and Loeb? Okay, great. So about the same number of people that know about Rope. That makes sense. So Leopold and Loeb were famously two homos in the 20s who killed a 14-year-old boy to see what it felt like. It was also kind of like the first like affluenza case. They were witch queers in Chicago that wanted to show how smart they were and how elite they were. And then they blabbed to everybody. They got caught really quickly with the trial. They didn't get away with it. In the play, the two lead characters, Brandon and Philip, were also gay lovers, just like their real-life inspiration. And there was a third leg of the triangle that was filled out with a new character for the play, a former professor of the two boys, Rupert, who was also a former lover of Brandon. So lots of things happening in the play. The movie maintained a lot of the queerness of it. Arthur Lawrence was brought in to adapt the screenplay. He was also openly queer. Farley Granger and John Dahl were brought in to play Philip and Brandon. They were both queer. Jimmy Stewart was brought in. He is not queer. He was only brought in after several Hollywood homos turned it down because they were too afraid to play something that seemed so openly gay. And Jimmy Stewart's honestly like the most non-sexual person I've ever seen on screen. So all the character sexuality was pretty much erased. Hitch, Lawrence, Dahl, and Granger's ability to play the characters in the scenes is so queer, but still getting it past the somewhat rigid censors is truly what I think makes this movie magic. Even though it made it past those national censors, there was still a lot of several local cities that banned the film, probably because there were some closeted homos on those local film boards that saw the opening scene and the other parts of it and realized how gay it was and got a little bit too excited and had to shut that shit down before their wives knew what was happening. Especially starting with the opening murder scene that I'm not going to show, that plays more like a super hot thug complete with post-coital, post-strangulation, shudders, and cigarettes. So, we're going to come in just after that first scene. I highly recommend going to look at that though, and the whole movie at some point. But at this point, Philip and Brandon have murdered this super boring hetero who was engaged to be married. They've stuffed the body in the trunk, and we're going to pick up with them now as they celebrate with champagne and get ready for a party.
Have a drink now? By all means. This is an occasion. It calls for champagne. Champagne? I put some in the icebox. When did you put it there, Brandon? Just before David arrived. You were certain it would come off, weren't you? Of course. You know I'd never do anything unless I did it perfectly. I've always wished for more artistic talent. Well, murder can be an art too. The power to kill can be just as satisfying as the power to create. Do you realize we've actually done it exactly as we planned? And not a single infinitesimal thing has gone wrong. It was perfect. Yes, an immaculate murder. We've killed for the sake of danger and for the sake of killing. We're alive, truly and wonderfully alive. Even champagne isn't equal to us or the occasion. I'll take it, though. You're not really frightened anymore, are you, Philip? You can't have fear, you know. Neither of us can. That's the difference between us and the ordinary man, Philip. They talk about committing the perfect crime, but nobody does it. Nobody commits a murder just for the experiment of committing it. Nobody else it does.
Talk
No more, are you, Philip? No? Not even of me? No. You just astound me. As always. That's even better. To David, of course. Brandon, how did you feel? When? During it? I don't know, really. I don't know very much of anything. Until his body went limp. I knew it was over. And then I felt tremendously exhilarated. How did you feel?
I mean, leave it to a bottom to ask how you feel and then not be able to answer. So in every scene they're in, it's so obvious that these two are homos. I mean, look at Carly Granger's mouth. And who but the gays would top their murder off by drinking champagne and throwing a fabulous party. To make it even more festive, the trunk with the body is used as the centerpiece of the party. The scene also, I think, really clearly establishes the sexual dynamics here. Brandon is obviously the dominant who thinks he's in control. Philip is his little submissive puppy dog, eager to do his bidding. There's so many ways I think you can read this movie and its subplots, and that's why I think it's so enduring and endearing, at least to me. The body could just be a body, which, sure, that's the straight read, super boring. It could also be their queerness on display for everybody to see and imbibe from and take from. The murder in the body can be the depth to heteronormativity and the mundaneness of straight life. All of it's so deep, and I don't know if I mentioned, but I watched this movie for the first time in a film class, right? Of course, like a good baby queer, I took a lot of film classes in university. My degree was in social work. I was the only openly queer student in my entire program, which meant I spent most of my time defending myself from all the Christians in my class who told me I was going to go to hell with all the rest of my sexual perversion friends. So to escape the hell that I was already in, I took every film class that I could. Hiding with the creatives and making every movie I watched about queerness or feminism, which I think you can also read in this too if you wanted to. But I digress. There's so much gayness laced throughout this movie, it's hard to pick just one more scene to really show it off. Brandon spends the rest of the movie teasing all of the heteros about the body and the chest, flirting with Rupert or Jimmy Stewart, practically begging him to come back and punish him and be his daddy. Subby Philip becomes a drunk, anxious mess who turns into a bitter, jealous queen by the end, which is what I want to finish with. So we're almost at the end. The party's over. Everybody's left. They've almost gotten away with their big, hot secret, but Rupert is on to them. After everyone's left, he makes an excuse to come back up. He plants his cigarette case, not casually at all, to make it seem like that's what he came back up for. Either because he knows there's a body in the trunk, boring, or because he wants to come back in to be the true top in this little throuple. Either way, Brandon's definitely here for it. Philip isn't having it, and I'll let you see how you think it goes.
Why should I want to come back?
Yes. Why?
For the pleasure of our company, or another drink. That's a very good idea. May I have one for the road? Of course. Short one? No, I prefer a long one. Oh, will you fix Rupert a drink? Now, let me see. The last I remember having the case was when I was there. I was just going to open the chest for Mrs. Wilson when you came over, Brandon. Then what? I think where could be? Oh, wow. Here it is, right where I left it. Gentlemen, I beg your pardon. I'm very sorry. Well, may I have that drink anyway? Of course. You really don't mind? No, why should we? Well, you might be, what? Tired. You're sure it's all right?
He said you could have it.
Thanks. He's had a few too many. Well, why not? Why not? After all, it was a party. Well, it's very pleasant to sit here with a good drink and a good company. I'm glad. Please don't let me be in the way. Of what? Well, I know you have things to do. What do you mean? Oh, packing, last minute odds and ends. You are driving up to Connecticut tonight, aren't you? Yes, but we're all packed. Oh, I see. All ready. All except one guest must be gotten rid of. Well, I'll be off. As soon as I finish my drink. There's no need to hurry, Rupert. Thank you. I would like to stay a bit. Perhaps even see you off. I always hate to leave a party. Especially when the evening has been unusually stimulating. Or strange. Like this evening.
What do you mean strange?
Did I say strange, man? No? You often pick words for sound rather than meaning. I don't exactly know what I meant.
Whatever the fuck that means. Six words for sound. Anyway, I wanted to end with this scene because I love it so much. I love that the censors were so boring that they couldn't pick up on the overtly gay storylines that culminate in this last shot. This is not the actual end of the movie. The actual end of the movie, Rupert gives some super boring lecture about morality, shoots off a gun to bring the cops, like men have to do, and shoot off their guns. So I want you to close your eyes and imagine with me for a second, even with Jimmy Stewart playing it as the straightest straight that ever straighted. I like to think of this as the beginning of a totally messy but hot threesome, where Philip gets over being a jealous little bossy bottom and uses that gay mouth for something other than crying. Brandon gets to be the true switch we know he actually is, and Jimmy Stewart gets to be the big bad silver daddy that he's always wanted to be. Thank you.
time for Dilla! But seriously, they could totally redo it where they're all just in harnesses and they stupid jock straps and there's no difference.
I don't know where the porn version of Rope is. I feel
Yeah.
like it has to exist out there, and if it doesn't, Austin.
Yeah, if you've talked it into being, it exists somewhere in the internet. It is a rule of the internet. I'm really surprised that the champagne didn't just explode everywhere when we were staring at each other so intensely.
I was hoping for a lot of popping of bottles.
Exactly, and just copious amounts of. Sorry, okay, that's what I was.
I mean, Hitchcock is a little bit more subtle.
Absolutely, good for good for her. So this was actually something you saw in film class.
Right, yeah, I mean, we watched it for the, long take, or whatever, but...
There was no queer undertone, discussed
no,
whatsoever?
no, not
Did
at
you
all.
bring it up? Or you just
not in that class. I was tired of
okay.
talking about queer stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, I needed a break. No, but it did lead me to really dig into Vito Russo's work and look through Celluloid Closet and his book and stuff. If you haven't read that, it's great. Awesome work that he's done. The documentary is great. Looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you watched a lot of films, you took a lot of film classes, and you still got your degree in social work.
Still
Yeah.
got my degree in social work.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. All right. Give it up one more time for Dilla. Coming up next, we've got a first-time professor excited to bring them up to the stage for a different kind of killer. I'm very pumped about this. Please give it up for Loris Brookman.